Wolves have always fascinated me. There's something about their presence, that quiet electric intelligence behind their eyes, that raw primal force that makes you realize how thin the line is between civilization and the wild. Every time I see footage of a wolf moving through the snow or hear stories from people who've crossed paths with them, I'm reminded that nature isn't some far-off thing we conquered. It's still out there, watching, breathing, waiting, and sometimes it watches us back. Over the years on my podcast, I've heard some of the most haunting, bone-chilling wolf encounters imaginable. Stories that don't just make you respect these animals, they make you question what we really know about the wild. When you hear them, you start to understand that wolves aren't just predators. They're symbols of something older: survival, instinct, unity, mystery. They're like living echoes of a time when humans still feared the dark because we knew something powerful was in it. One of the stories that always stuck with me came from a hunter in Alaska. This guy wasn't a rookie, had been out in the wilderness for decades, knew the land, knew the animals, knew how to stay alive. But this trip changed the way he looked at everything. He was out there in midwinter, miles from civilization, deep in the kind of landscape that looks like another planet: endless snow, trees like black spines against the sky, and silence so thick you can hear your own heartbeat. The first day was fine. He tracked caribou, set up camp, cooked his dinner over a small fire, but on the second morning he noticed tracks, wolf tracks, big ones, fresh. They circled the perimeter of his camp like someone had been walking around it all night. He thought maybe it was just one curious wolf passing through, but then he saw more prints, overlapping, organized, purposeful, a pack. For 2 days they shadowed him. He never saw them directly, but he felt them. Sometimes heads stop in the middle of the trail and swear he could hear faint footsteps behind him. Other times, the forest would just go quiet, no birds, no wind, and that silence would tell him everything he needed to know. The wolves were close, watching, waiting. On the third night, it all came to a head. The fire crackled low, and the temperature dropped to below zero. He was half asleep when he heard a low growl, deep and resonant, cutting through the stillness. It wasn't distant, it was close. When he grabbed his flashlight and swung the beam across the darkness, he saw them 6 pairs of eyes glowing back at him, perfectly still. The wolves didn't flinch. They didn't run. They just stared at him with that calm, predatory focus that says, "We see you, we know you." He said it was like looking into the void of nature itself, that ancient, indifferent force that doesn't care who you are or what you've achieved. Just the raw balance of life and death, survival and instinct. The wolves didn't attack. They didn't need to. They were simply letting him know that he wasn't the apex out there. By dawn, they were gone. All that remained was a perfect ring of paw prints around his tent, a silent message written in the snow. Then there was a story from a biologist I talked to who'd spent years studying wolves in Yellowstone. This guy was as rational as they come, scientist through and through. But even he couldn't explain what he experienced. He told me about a wolf they called the Phantom. No one had ever captured it, tagged it, or photographed it clearly, but its presence was everywhere. Tracks would appear overnight in areas miles apart. Other wolves avoided the regions it roamed. Carcasses were found stripped clean. No signs of struggle, no blood trail, nothing. Just the remains. And the feeling that something far smarter and stealthier than a normal wolf had been there. The Phantom became legend. Local rangers talked about it like a ghost. Hunters swore they'd seen it, a massive black wolf that seemed to vanish the second it was spotted. The biologist didn't believe any of that. Until one winter morning, he was following a fresh trail after a snowfall, huge paw prints that looked almost too large to be real. The air was still, the kind of silence that presses on your ears. The prints led him deeper into the park, into a part of the forest where even the other animals avoided. Eventually, the trail climbed into a clearing surrounded by pine trees. He stepped out, expecting to see another set of tracks on the far side, but there was nothing. The trail just ended. No broken branches, no disturbed snow, no exit tracks, just a clean white field and the eerie sense that something was there with him. He said the hair on his neck stood up like static. He felt watched, not by an animal in the normal sense, but by something aware, intelligent, old. He stood there for nearly a minute, heart pounding, scanning the trees, but there was nothing, just that impossible stillness. He told me that moment shook his belief in pure science for the first time, because How do you explain an animal that leaves tracks, territory, and kills but can vanish like smoke? Another story that's burned into my memory came from a survival expert who had spent months off-grid in northern Canada. This guy lived by himself, no phone, no GPS, just raw wilderness skills. One night, around 2 a.m., his sled dog started whining. When he stepped outside his shelter, D of silent companion. When a snowstorm rolled in and he was running out of food, something strange happened. He woke up to find a fresh rabbit carcass just outside his shelter. The next day, a deer leg, half-eaten but left close enough to grab. It was as if the wolf was feeding him, helping him survive. He made it through the storm, and after that, the wolf was gone. He never saw it again. Months later, he came back to the area, hoping to catch a glimpse, but there were no tracks, no signs of any wolf activity at all. Locals told him it was impossible. Wolves don't bond with humans. They don't bring food. They don't protect. But he believed that whatever that animal was, it wasn't just a wolf. It was something older, something aware that had decided for whatever reason to keep him alive. Then there was the story from a woman who grew up in northern Minnesota. Her family lived near dense forests, the kind of place where winters stretch on forever and the line between folklore and reality blurs. As a kid, she used to hear howls echo through the trees, but these weren't normal wolf howls. They were too long, too drawn out, with this strange, almost human tone to them. One winter, her father found a dead deer near their property, but it wasn't just a kill. It was arranged, like some kind of offering or warning. The body was untouched except for a perfect slice down its side, and the snow around it was clean. No struggle, no tracks, just a deer and that eerie silence that always seems to come before something unexplainable. After that, weird things started happening. Every night they heard heavy footsteps circling the house, slow, deliberate, like something was walking on two legs and then dropping back to four. Her father stayed up one night with a rifle. He said around midnight he saw a massive shadow moving at the edge of the yard. It stood up tall, broad, like a man before falling forward again and disappearing into the woods. The next morning they found prints in the snow, not quite human, not quite wolf, somewhere in between. Years later, when she told the story as an adult, she found out other people in the region had seen the same thing. A creature that moved like both man and beast, always near the tree line, always watching. Nobody could explain it, but everyone agreed it wasn't just a normal wolf. She said that experience changed her. It made her believe that some legends, the ones about shapeshifters and spirit wolves, might come from real encounters, real energies that science just hasn't caught up to yet. And then there's the one story that's haunted me more than any of them. It came from a former park ranger in Montana, a guy who had spent years in those wild lands, patrolling, rescuing lost hikers, tracking predators. Had seen everything: grizzlies, mountain lions, avalanches. Nothing rattled him until that one case. People had been going missing in a remote section of forest campers, hunters, even livestock disappearing without a trace. When he hit Ed out there to investigate, he found a campsite that looked like it had been torn apart by something massive. Tents shredded, gear scattered, claw marks dug deep into the trees. But the strangest part was the silence. No birds, no wind, not even the buzz of insects. Just dead air, like the forest itself was holding its breath. He decided to camp there overnight, hoping to catch whatever was responsible. Around midnight, the air got heavy. He heard slow, deliberate footsteps circling the camp, not rushing, just pacing. When he turned on his flashlight, he saw 3 enormous wolves standing just beyond the light's reach. They didn't snarl, didn't flinch. They just stared at him. He said one of them had eyes unlike any animal had ever seen, golden, almost human, filled with an emotion he couldn't define. He fired a warning shot. The wolves didn't react. They just turned and walked into the darkness, soundless, their shapes melting into the trees. The next morning he followed their tracks. They led into a ravine and stopped at a sheer rock wall. No exit, no continuation, just a dead end. He said it made no sense, like they'd simply vanished. A week later, he quit the job and never went back. He told me he couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had seen wasn't just wolves. It was something ancient wearing the shape of wolves, something that didn't want to be understood. When I hear stories like that, I can't help but think about what wolves really represent. They're not just predators. They're a mirror, a reminder of the wilderness still alive inside us. They live in packs with loyalty and purpose, hunt with precision, survive with unity. They move like shadows, kill without cruelty, and disappear without trace. They exist in perfect balance with their environment, something humans have lost. People talk about being the apex predator, about controlling nature, about building cities and machines that separate us from the wild. But out there in the dark woods, with those glowing eyes staring back, you realize how fragile that illusion is. You feel that primal awareness kick in the ancient fear that reminds you you're still part of the food chain. Wolves are the embodiment of that truth. They're the wild given form. Maybe that's why we've mythologized them for so long. From Native American legends to Norse mythology, wolves have always been tied to spirits, transformation, and power. They're guides, messengers, tricksters, guardians. They represent freedom, danger, and respect all at once. And maybe, just maybe, that's because there's something about them that defies our understanding, something that isn't fully of this world. When you strip away everything modern, all the tech, the noise, the lights, and you find yourself in the woods at night, really out there, and you hear that distant howl cutting through the air, you feel something deep in your gut. It's not fear, it's recognition. It's that buried instinct that says, I know that sound. I've known it since before language. It's the call of survival, of belonging to something bigger and older than civilization. Wolves remind us of that. They remind us that no matter how advanced we get, the wild still has a claim on us. It's in our DNA. It's in our dreams. It's in that part of us that craves freedom, that still wants to run under the moon and feel the cold air burn in our lungs. They are the bridge between what we are and what we were. So when I hear stories of wolves, the hunter surrounded by glowing eyes, the biologist chasing a phantom through the snow, the man saved by an unseen guardian, the family haunted by something half wolf, half man, I don't think of monsters or myths. I think of messengers, reminders, symbols of that edge we all still live on, whether we admit it or not, because the truth is the wild never really left us. It's just waiting quiet, patient, watching from the tree line. And every once in a while, if you're lucky, you'll catch a glimpse of it in a pair of golden eyes glowing in the dark. You'll feel that shiver in your chest, that electric pull towards something ancient and real. And in that moment, you'll remember exactly who you are, a creature of the earth, breathing the same air as the wolf, standing at the fragile border between the known and the unknown. The wolves are still out there, always have been, always will be. And maybe, just maybe, they're watching to make sure we never forget.